Welcome back to the Grand Slam channel. Today is Monday, December 30th. Hope you all had a great weekend. We got Monday Night Football today between the Lions and the 49ers. 49ers are already eliminated, so not sure how much effort they're going to put into this game. The Lions are still trying to fight for home field advantage, but they already have clinched playoffs. Do have a couple props that I like, but mostly I'm going to focus on NBA today. Let's get started with NFL. First one I'll be going with is Gibbs. Everybody's going to be on Jamar Gibbs. We all know with Montgomery out for the rest of the season, Gibbs is going to be the go-to guy along with Jared Goff. But for Gibbs, everything's inflated, especially his rushing yards, his fantasy score. DG Fantasy has his fantasy score juiced under. He is at 21. They have him projected at 19, 19.5. So I'm going to stay away from his fantasy score. I still think he's going to blow right past it. But I'm going to go with his receiving yards at 26.5. Last game he had 45, and that was without Montgomery. With Montgomery, he had 30, 17, and 83. So with Jamar Gibbs, I'm going to take over his receiving yards. You can take his Gobby and play it safe. Luckily, you can take his receptions as well, a 2.5 Gobby as well. And you can take a shot at his rush and receiving yards. Preferably his Gobby at 99.5. You can get that on rushing yards alone. But overall, I'm going to be taking his receiving yards. Everything else is too inflated for me. Receiving yards, Daily Grand Fantasy does have it going over. I have it projected to go over 35 yards as well. Next prop I'm going with is Juwan Jennings. And I'm going to be taking his receiving yards to go under. With Debo, Kittle, too many options for Brock Purdy. I know Juwan Jennings is another weapon. They also have Isaac Guerrero, Ricky as well. But for Juwan Jennings, 63.5 is a little bit too high. Usually his line's in the higher 50s or mid 50s. I'm going to be taking the under. The only time he did go over was against the Bears. Past 10 games, he's only gone over 3 of those 10 with 60 yards or more. So I'm going to be taking the under here. It's going to get bumped further down. DG Fantasy also like this to go under. So I'm going to take a shot on Juwan Jennings. You can also look into his receptions. If his receptions at 5, obviously he needs 6 to cover. He is at 5, so most likely I'll be taking the under there as well, along with his receiving yards. Last one I'll be going with is Jared Goff. And for him, I'm going to be taking his passing yards at 246.9. I think he's going to have somewhere close to 300 yards in this game. Past 2 games, he's gone nuclear. 494 against a great team, playoff team, Bills, and then he had 336 against the Bears. I think he's going to clear 300 yards in this one against the 49ers. Like I mentioned, not sure how much effort they're going to put. Not sure if they're going to rest their starters as well. For Jared Goff, you can take his passing yards or fantasy score. I'll just take his passing yards. Let's head on over to NBA. Couple props I like. I did post my 2-man last night, and it was actually an NBA first half. Got some great value. Those 2 props have been bumped. But if you want to take them, you can check my Instagram and Twitter. I did take Josh Giddey. Points and rebounds is still at 13, or you can take his fantasy score. Either or is good. I personally took his PRA. And the next one for first half is Shaden Sharp, 12.5. Fantasy score is also in play. Like both props, and that is my 2-man that I rolled with last night. You can still roll with them today, and I haven't been bumped yet. Full game props, I will be taking Josh Giddey, and for him you have several options. Like I mentioned, his first half is in play, PRA is in play, his points is in play, fantasy score is in play. But I do have his rebounds and assists, which I took last night at 13.5. So I'm going to pivot to his fantasy score. I still think he's going to go well over 14. I have him projected to get 15. So fantasy score or rebounds and assists are both in play. Next one is Nate Powell. Norman Powell. Points, PRA, fantasy score are all in play. I'm going to be taking his points. Points and assists is not bad at 26.5. You can get that on points alone. Most likely I'll be taking his points or points and assists. Fantasy score is also in play, 33.5. He mostly relies on his points, on his scoring ability. Doesn't get much rebounds or assists or even blocks and steals. So I'm going to stick somewhere where it's his points. So you can take his points and assists, his PRA, or points and rebounds. And last one is Jamal Murray. And for him, I like his points, PRA, fantasy score is also in play. His RA is also in play. Fantasy score of 42, going against Utah. The matchup is there. I think he's going to go off. So I'll be taking his fantasy score along with this RA and points and rebounds. His RA is not posted on Prize Picks yet, but you can actually it is at 11. So you do have some push equity, and it's actually been bumped. It was at 10.5. So his fantasy score will be probably best. So I got 3 props for NFL, 3 for NBA. Obviously, I have more. I did post out all that on my Discord. But these are the 3 strongest. Great value. The matchup is there. DG Fantasy model has it over 52, 53% hit rate to go over. You don't have to take these particular props, fantasy score, points and assists, fantasy score. But you can take other props such as their points, their RA, PRA. Everything's pretty much in play when I do put fantasy score. So I do like Giddey and Jamal Murray today. Other than that, mix and match. Pick your favorite.